some of the objectively, kind of the legitimate challenges and tensions around this issue, which is that, you know, we talked about trust in amongst boards, we talked about chemistry, and that being so important. So one of the kind of, and you're talking about companies that are time pressured, you're under the gun, and all those things can conspire to say, what's the fastest, most efficient way to solve for chemistry, to solve for trust? Well, it's going to be typically, who are the people who I know have, we talked about having pre-existing relationships, right? Who are the people I know that I trust, that are known quantities to me. And so it is easy and natural and practical to see that this leads to homogeneity on boards. And so I just want to acknowledge that as kind of the backdrop that we're dealing with, not because people have these sort of nefarious reasons for trying to keep boards that way. Maybe there are a few, but we won't talk about them. Largely, so that's kind of the challenge, is that, you know, sometimes homogeneity is sort of, I call it lazy man's solution for chemistry, because it's easy to get there that way. So if you're trying to break out of that, say, why is this important? Why would it be important? Because it might take longer. It might be, it may mean going outside of a network that is known to me. I think it really gets back to, if you are trying to immunize your company against unknown threat and identify opportunities that may not be obvious to you, having the most diverse thoughts in the room and background is going to set you up for that, is going to maximize chances of success around that. So to me, it's about diversity of thought and background experience. You know, I am an Egyptian immigrant. I'm sort of a citizen of the world. I live half of my time for a long time in Europe. I spent my formative years in the deep south in Alabama. Those experiences actually changed the way I think about things. They shaped my view. And I can see it when I'm sitting next to somebody. I've been in the Bay Area 20 years. I can see when I'm sitting next to somebody who grew up here or grew up in a different part of the country. And when we talk, we really have an expansive conversation. So it's really about that. That I think kind of the gender discussion is the most useful to have. And when you think about it in that backdrop, you say, why would we want to have a board that's making kind of the most important strategic decisions for a company and have half the population's perspective not represented? That just doesn't seem like a strategic thing to do. And I think, you know, in 5 years and maybe sooner, it'll just be kind of, we won't even have to ask this question, but right now just making the implicit explicit, I think, ends up being useful. So the diversity of thought and experience is what we find valuable. There are plenty of women who don't have that. So there's the symbol of diversity, which is, I now have a woman on my board, and then there's true diversity. And I can tell you, I know Sharon well. I've never met these other amazing women, but I can tell you, I can say with confidence, none of us want to be associated with being a symbol for diversity. We want to know that we're there for substantive reasons, and we're also happy to be role models for amplifying this so that more women are viewed in that role, but not just for that alone. So it's really important for that kind of substance around the thinking and the experience and getting clear about, why do I want this person here? There are plenty of men that bring a diversity of thought and experience, and there are plenty of women who are not as connected to that part of themselves, and I think it's just really important to get underneath the layers. And then the last thing I'll just say is that one thing I have found, I think where we're really trying to get to is a more humanistic way of doing business. And so when you have both genders at the table, when you have different cultures at the table, what we draw on to solve for problems is sort of the commonality of human experience. And when you do that, what I see is that the men at the table, their humanity comes forward and they feel like they have permission to lead with that. And the women feel like they have permission to lead with that, because a lot of us, if we are in male-dominated environments, will often, you know, put a lid on that stuff, and we show up in our power suits and our hyper-analytical left brain thinking, which has its place, but also business is personal, and getting back to, okay, I'm dealing with this human being, and if they're not bought in, if I don't know what makes them win right now in this moment, I'll have zero influence over them. So how do we deal with the person and the feelings behind this issue while we're dealing with the issue too? I just think when you have a mixed gender group, that's more likely to happen.